Hello, guys and gals. Recently, I've been playing guitar with some different people, and I've kind of been getting some suggestions to not necessarily give lessons, but spread my knowledge to maybe people that don't have quite the music understanding for guitar that they would hope to have. Many times I've seen people, they can read tabs and play different songs and stuff, but in reality, they don't really know music theory or really what notes they're playing. So figured I'd put a couple videos together, just kind of going through the really basic things as far as notes, octaves, scales, things like that. So to start out, I just wanted to go all the way down to the basics with essentially the idea of notes and how they kind of come together to form what we call music. So on a guitar, you probably noticed you've got on the top, let's see if I can focus it on here, you got all these dots. If you notice, you've got them spaced kind of differently. Most of them are 2 away, some of them are 3 frets apart. And then you'll notice up here, some guitars have a double dot, some have a regular dot, others have a different symbol, different things. And I just wanted to point this out because we're going to be looking at that a little bit later. So as far as notes on a guitar, everybody kind of knows the open notes, right? E, A, D, G, B, E, right? That's not really anything. But a lot of questions that I get is, why is this an E and why is this also an E? They sound completely different. And the idea behind that, to understand why you can have 2 notes that sound completely different but called the same thing, we have to kind of understand what music is built off of. Everyone's heard the notes, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Those are the notes that we use for music. You've probably heard the terms sharp and flat as well, but until we understand exactly what those means, the fact that you have E and E are not going to make any sense. So starting out, let's just go 6th string, open, that's an E. So when we're talking about music, we use letters to signify different tones. Our music is based off of what maybe a term you've heard, A440, which means that Western music is based off of the A is tuned to 440 hertz, which is the frequency of the note itself. That's not really necessarily important. All you need to know is that a letter for the note just signifies the frequency that it represents. So if we're playing an E, as we go up, what we're intentionally doing is raising the frequency. So when you say a higher note, the reason it's higher is because your frequency is higher. So if I go from an E to an F, you'll notice it's a higher pitch, because what I've essentially done is I've taken the length of this string, right, and I've shortened it by about an inch. By doing that, it makes it so that the string vibrates faster, which in turn creates a higher frequency. I mean, that's basically it. Everything that somebody plays on guitar, all you're doing is changing how long the string is. If I play here or I play here, all I'm doing is changing the length of what is vibrating on the string. It's either vibrating from here to here or it's vibrating from here to here. That's all I'm doing. So for notes, they go sequentially as you go up and shorten the length of that string. Now, as far as sharps and flats go, you've probably heard, maybe some of you haven't, there's no sharps or flats between E and F and B and C. Now, some music majors that have masters or doctorates will argue with you that sharps and flats still exist. It all depends on the scale, but yeah, ignore them. Basically, all you need to know right now is there's no sharps and flats between E and F and B and C. Get that in your head, memorize it. You can forget it later and call me a liar if you want. Now, going up, starting here, we know this is an E. Now the next one is going to be an F, because remember, there's no sharps or flats between E and F. So I've got E, my first fret is F. Now, the next one up, the next fret, the second fret, is an F sharp because only E and F don't have sharps and flats between. So every time you go up one fret, you're gonna have a sharp between. So I'm gonna go F, then F sharp, and then G, and then G sharp, right? And then now G sharp is the last note, and we loop all the way back around back to A. So this one here is going to be an A. And the next one, you guessed it, A sharp. Next one up here, B. Next one, remember there's no sharps or flats between B and C, so that's a C. Then C sharp, and then D, and then D sharp. Now here's where it gets interesting. What's the next one going to be? After D sharp, it's going to be an E. But we just played an E down here, right? And if you notice where I'm playing that E, right where I showed you earlier, that second dot. The reason that that's so important is because this signifies what we call an octave. So as we go through all of these notes, eventually we get to a frequency that is twice the number as the one before it. So this, I'm shortening the length of this string by half, precisely twice the frequency. When doing that, it essentially makes the same wavelength, but half the distance, meaning twice the frequency. So that's why this little double dot is so significant. What it implies is that this is now where your octave is. So this is an E, this is also an E, but an octave higher. That's how you can have two different E's that sound completely different but are considered the same note, both E. So that's just really the basic understanding of how you transition up a string, how it changes the frequency, and how you label the notes. So the things to remember is that when you change a note, all you're doing is raising the frequency. And going up any string, depending on where you start, you're going to go up by a half a step or a sharp each time. Now, remember, there's no sharps between E and F and B and C. So instead of going B, B sharp, C, you just go B straight to C. So that's really important to remember. If you do your math, you can do it in your head or whatever, you'll find out that there are 12 notes before you hit your octave. That's called a chromatic scale. Chromatic meaning it hits every note. So you're doing all of your sharps, all of your flats between one note and the next octave up. Now this isn't just the case for E. Obviously, if we have an A, it's going to be the same thing, right? That's an A. If we push right here, that 12th fret with the double dot, it's also going to be an A. It's just an octave higher. That's true all the way down the guitar. That's why that dot is so significant, and that's why almost every guitar will have some sort of signifier there saying that that is your 12th fret, because it's very, very significant in that way. Basically, that's the most basic thing to understand about notes and how they relate to going up the neck of a guitar. So if you enjoyed that, let me know, and maybe I'll make some more. If you have requests on maybe some simple videos, some simple understandings that just you can't quite grasp, let me know in comments, and maybe I'll make some more videos. We'll see how it goes. Thanks.